Which conspiracy theory is so believable that it might be true? Story 1. Lotteries are actually traps for time travelers. Story 2. Jeffrey Epstein is a Florida billionaire who is believed to be running an underage sex trafficking ring. A brief background. In 2007, dozens of underage women came forward, saying Epstein was having sex with them in Florida. They also claimed that he passed the girls along to other elites and ran a sex ring and blackmailing service. Trump, Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, and Prince Andrew are all known associates of Epstein, who would go on his plane dubbed the Lolita Express to a private island in the Caribbean. What happened next was ridiculous. Epstein hired the best legal team ever, as good as OJ's. Dershowitz was involved in all that. Acosta was the prosecutor against Epstein, and he's now appointed by Trump to his cabinet. Acosta gave Epstein the plea deal of his life. He was found guilty of one charge of sex with a minor, in spite of being accused by dozens of girls, and had to register as a sex offender. He got 13 months in jail but only served 10. Here's the kicker. He could leave jail 6 times a week to go work at his at-home office. He was supposed to go to prison but stayed in the local jail for some reason. He was granted immunity. All co-conspirators in the case were given immunity. This means that if further evidence comes out against other people in the case, they can't be prosecuted again. His house butler was found guilty of obstruction of justice regarding the evidence against Epstein. He got more jail time, years, than Epstein. The police commissioner on the case stepped down because he thought it was rigged. Miami Herald said it was the deal of a lifetime. Epstein is now free and still has billions of dollars. Acosta has told friends that he was scared to go against the powers that be because they would squash his career. This all happened in 2008, I think. The DOJ just reopened the case last month due to the f***ery going on. Clinton and Trump, among other famous people like Kevin Spacey, have been documented flying on Epstein's plane to his infamous Lolita Express. A Miami judge just ruled last week that Epstein case was illegal and violated the law because Acosta did not consult the victims before bringing the plea deal. Story 3. The conspiracy theory about the Titanic and the Olympics has credibility because there's photographic evidence to support it. It is one of the few conspiracy theories that I believe in. The sister ships, Olympic and Titanic, were both owned by White Star Line. The Olympic was launched in June 1911, but in September of the same year, it collided with another ship, the HMS Hawk, causing damage to both ships. White Star Line was found liable for the accident and had to pay for damages and legal fees. The repairs for the Olympic took 2 months, and parts that were intended for the Titanic had to be used instead. Shortly after the Olympic returned to service, it suffered another minor incident that caused it to cannibalize parts that were intended for the Titanic. At this point, the Olympics were becoming a financial drain on White Star Line. However, its reputation as unsinkable was cemented after surviving a major accident. The Titanic was finally completed and ready for its maiden voyage on April 10, 1912, after a delay to replace the parts needed for the Olympic. The Titanic's tragic sinking after hitting an iceberg is well known, resulting in the loss of 1,500 lives. The Olympic, on the other hand, continued to operate successfully for another 24 years, even serving in World War I and earning the nickname Old Reliable for its impenetrable hull. In 1919, it was re-outfitted for civilian use and served as an ocean liner until its retirement in 1935. However, some believe that it was actually the Olympic that sank and not the Titanic. This theory suggests that White Star Line intentionally sank the Olympic to collect on its million-pound insurance policy and remove a ship that was costing them more money than it was bringing in. So here's the conspiracy theory. At some point after the Titanic was completed, they switched the identities of the ships. The new Titanic was actually the Olympic, and the Olympic was actually the brand spanking new Titanic, fresh from the construction yard with zero problems and zero history. They intended for the Titanic to suffer some sort of failure that would result in the destruction of the problem ship so they could collect the insurance money. I doubt they intended to cause the deaths of 1,500 people. The events that transpired, which led to the sinking of the Titanic, possibly happened purely by chance, and the iceberg wasn't part of their plan, i.e. they didn't hire the captain to specifically ram the iceberg to sink the ship or anything like that. They probably had another plan involving the repairs that had already been made in the ship when it collided with HMS Hawk. In any case, it wasn't really the Titanic that left port on April 10, 1912. It was the Olympic. After the sinking of the Titanic, White Star Line received a tidy sum of £1 million in insurance money, or £89,289,575 in today's money. This, of course, ruined the insurer, Lloyd's of London. There's an additional conspiracy theory that American financier and banker J.P. Morgan was in on this whole scheme. His company, J.P. Morgan & Company, financed the International Mercantile Marine Company in the hopes of becoming rich off of sea travel. But this turned out to be a bad investment because of the unpredictable nature of sea travel and travelers themselves. J.P. Morgan or one of his associates may have schemed with White Star Line, which was a subsidiary of this IMMC, in order to bankrupt the IMMC and allow J.P. Morgan & Company to withdraw from the IMMC without breaking a contract. I cannot provide evidence for this beyond speculation. There is no reason why the shipbuilders would have changed the portholes in the Titanic when they were nearly done building it. That piece was not one of the pieces cannibalized from the Titanic to repair the Olympic and would have needed to be replaced by a different piece. The only answer is that the ship in the final picture, which is the ship that left port on April 10, 1912, and was met with a terrible fate near Newfoundland, was not the Titanic, but actually the Olympic. You can find pictures from newspapers further supporting this, as they clearly show the name of the ship and the wrong number and orientation of portholes. I doubt we'll ever know one way or another, since the wreck at the bottom of the Atlantic is quickly being covered with sediment and will soon be completely buried and inaccessible. Additionally, places of the ship that was retired in 1935 and dismantled in 1937 are both difficult to find and difficult to authenticate, and anybody who might be able to either confirm or deny this theory is already deceased. Story 4. The oil and coal industries invested heavily in killing off nuclear power as an attractive alternative. Nowadays, we have reactor designs that are many times safer than other methods of generating power, and the waste issue is something that could be fixed with sufficient investment. It's not even a matter of these days. Even taking into account disasters like Chernobyl, estimated at around 4,000 premature deaths, and Fukushima, 600. Nuclear power is incredibly safe compared to coal's 5,000 accidents per year. Nuclear power kills 90 people per petawatt hour generated, whereas coal kills 100,000 people per petawatt hour, mainly because of lung problems worldwide. Even if we don't take into account the contribution of climate change, most of those deaths are easily avoidable if we switch to nuclear. Story 5. The president of the Philippines, Duterte, is very anti-drugs to hide his own involvement with drug cartels, from which he makes billions. Funny enough, he once told supporters that if his own children were found to be dealing drugs, they should be executed. Not long after, one of his children was found to be involved with a big shipment of cocaine, IIRC, but still alive. Furthermore, Duterte is a fentanyl addict and is compromised by Chinese intelligence, upon whom he depends for his source of fentanyl. In exchange for favorable policies from the PRC deployed tactics similar to Putin's to get Duterte elected. His son is the current drug kingpin, and all the drug lords he's murdered are rivals vying for control in the Philippines. His main local benefactor and patron is Bongbong Marcos, son of former dictator Ferdinand Marcos, who incidentally enough was a client of Paul Manafort. Cambridge Analytica was in the Philippines during the campaign period for the 2016 Philippine presidential elections, which were held in May, 6 months before the U.S. elections. Since being elected, the Philippines has backed down on its claims to territories in the West Philippine Sea claimed by China, which is continuing to build bases and reclaim land in those areas. Meanwhile, existing infrastructure that has no problems at all is being demolished only to be reconstructed, paid for by Chinese loans with stipulated requirements to hire only Chinese contractors. Since his election, the property market has also been booming thanks to the increased influx of Chinese property buyers, creating a real estate bubble. Illegal Chinese immigration into the country has increased exponentially to the point that the government has admitted not knowing how many illegal Chinese are actually in the Philippines. While in the Philippines, these illegal Chinese minimize their impact on the economy by only transacting with Chinese-owned businesses, and they conduct their transactions using WeChat and Chinese RMB, completely circumventing the Philippine financial system. Story 6. I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory at this point, but a lot of people still don't acknowledge that their internet searches and social media profiles are being used as training models by major IT companies. When I was a drunk college student, I had access to them to run AI training. If you still think you're off the grid, you're an idiot. To be frank, it's not a big deal if you don't have dark shit to hide. Those people are too busy building the new technological world to care that you look at midget porn. But don't delude yourself into thinking people don't have access to anything you do on the internet. And to further that point, privacy in public is non-existent. When you're in public, in a city, you're on camera something like every 6 minutes, more in denser areas. So don't freak out when someone takes your picture or films you acting like an idiot. If you have your cell phone with you, you're being tracked. How else does Google give you specific traffic ingestion details in real time all over the world? Story 7. The Laurel Canyon conspiracy, basically. If you look at the counterculture revolutionaries in the music industry in the 1960s, most of them were the children of military intelligence people. The theories that the free love, lots of drugs movement they inspired was done intentionally to distract the youth from a full-scale revolution. The thought was that if the angry youth of the mid to late 60s were too high and getting laid all the time, they would stop caring as much about societal ills and then basically sleepwalk through the 70s, which they did. I stumbled upon this when I was reading up on Jim Morrison, and how his father was the one who called in the fake strike at the Gulf of Tonkin that kicked off the Vietnam War, which was later shown to have been a false flag. It turns out that a lot of his contemporaries were also the children of highly placed military people with ties to intelligence. It's strange that they all wound up in Laurel Canyon as part of the same movement. Story 8. The CIA was involved in selling crack to low-income black neighborhoods to fund activities they couldn't get approved by Congress. And it's just a matter of degree. But I think they were deeply involved in directly smuggling and selling crack through intermediaries to black communities and executive branch. Gary Stephen Webb was at the center of this conspiracy. He was an award-winning journalist who started his career in Ohio and Kentucky and contributed to the Pulitzer Prize-winning coverage of the Loma Prieta earthquake. San Jose Mercury News. Webb produced outstanding investigative reporting on the crack cocaine epidemic. He was able to, far beyond a reasonable doubt, connect many dots between the CIA, FBI, and drug smuggling. Story 9. The entire situation surrounding the construction and operation of DIA, Denver International Airport, is strange, even by non-conspiracist standards. There are a lot of conspiracy theories revolving around the Denver airport. I'll try to touch on all the ones I know, but forgive me if I miss a few. There's no doubt that there are some odd things about the airport, from the delayed construction to the massive cost to the odd choice of decorations. Opening on February 28, 1995, 16 months behind schedule and at double the cost of the original estimate, $4.8 billion. Denver International Airport is the largest airport in the U.S. by total land area, 33,531 acres. Not long after it opened, wild conspiracy theories began floating around. One major theory is that there was a massive underground bunker that was built for the world's elite in the event of an apocalyptic event. Another is that there's a massive facility underneath that was built to be used as a concentration camp in the future. Some people believe that the reason for the delay in the schedule was due to the construction of said underground bunkers and tunnels. Supposedly, a construction worker claims that they buried 5 multi-story buildings underneath and built the airport on top of it. Aside from the construction theories, there are plenty of things inside the airport that are just plain odd. One thing mentioned often is the large Mustang statue, shown above, outside of the airport nicknamed Blucifer, a large blue horse with red eyes that supposedly represents one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, death. Oddly enough, the architect who designed the piece was killed when the horse's head fell on him, severing major arteries and causing what proved to be fatal injuries. Another thing people find odd is the dedication stone inside the airport. One of the first things you notice is the large Freemason symbol in the middle of the stone. Another thing people point to is the date in the stone, March 19, 1994. If you add up the numbers 191994, you get 33, which is a significant number in the Freemasons, as I believe it is the highest level you can reach in the organization. The last odd thing about the dedication stone is that it says near the bottom, New World Airport Commission contributors. People believe this is a reference to the New World Order, which will supposedly be brought on by the Freemasons or Illuminati. Also noted by conspiracy theorists are the 4 odd and slightly disturbing murals that are displayed in the airport. Some people believe these murals are packed with Freemason iconography and occult references, and even are a telling of the future. Story 10. A massive electromagnetic storm or meteor hit the Earth about 12,000 years ago, melting the glacial ice sheets almost overnight and causing massive worldwide flooding. It would have caused worldwide trauma in human thinking that could have rippled through generations of people in the form of strange traditions and religious beliefs. Many religious texts have accounts of mythical-sounding floods, firestorms, or sky-blackening events. This event could also explain the extinction of a lot of megafauna in North America, the discovery of civilization sites like Göbekli Tepe that are at least 10,000 to 12,000 years old, and the fact that structures like the Sphinx in Egypt and other megalithic stone structures in the world may be far older than previously thought. Plato's account of Atlantis being wiped out, and details that make it seem like the Rikat structure might be a really good candidate for the location of an actual place. This is my favorite rabbit hole by far. Story 11. Your phone's microphone is constantly hot, and is listening for keywords to target advertising. The most glaring instance where this happened to me was when I walked into a colleague's office. He had just gotten a standing desk, but one that went on top of his existing desk rather than a standalone model. That's important to note. I said, "Nice standing desk. When did you get that?" "Thanks, just today," he replied. That was literally all that was said about the desk. We talked about work-related stuff, and as I walked out and checked my phone, there was an ad on Facebook for that exact model of standing desk. I'd never owned one before, wanted one, or Googled one before. Yet there it was on my feed. Tinfoil hats be damned, they listen in. Story 12. Kurt Cobain didn't kill himself. I've always been an anti-conspiracy theorist, but this legitimately haunts me. The same f***ing day, the case was opened and closed, even if you have stone-cold evidence that does not happen anywhere, especially for a celebrity of this caliber. The Seattle Police Department had a long-running reputation for corruption. According to his autopsy, Kurt had 3 times the legal dose of heroin in his system. Not only would it have been impossible for him to be conscious, but to also be able to neatly put away his airgun kit and have the strength to pick up the shotgun and pull the trigger? Impossible. The trajectory of the shotgun shell and where it landed in the room would have been impossible had he shot himself. The shell landed as if the gun was pointed downward at him. These are just a few of the very suspicious things that occurred around this. Please watch the documentary Soaked in Bleach. It uses the real audio recordings from the PI that Courtney Love hired to essentially spy on Kurt a few weeks before his death. Story 13. This might be in here already, but the push for a $15 minimum wage was created and supported by the companies that would be most negatively affected. Fast food, McDonald's, shipping, Amazon warehouse workers, etc., to drum up negative public perception of these workers as entitled. Why should they get $15 an hour flipping burgers when I'm making $25 an hour doing insert considerably harder job? And these jobs aren't for supporting a family. Then, when they inevitably ask for too much, as they were secretly supported to do, make the switch to automation in virtually all these jobs. Public perception will be behind the corporations standing up to the entitled losers and making the transition easier in the company's annoying AI that takes at least 2 to 3 years of true public use to perfect. No one will feel bad. Now those low-skilled workers will be out of a job with virtually no mobility. Story 14. Mattress firms aren't only holding mattresses, buddy. I got to thinking that I needed a new bed, so I decided to check it out. I went in and was approached by 2 salesmen. They had this $1,499 mattress that I really liked. The salesman saw the twinkle in my eye and knew that I must have this mattress. I told him I liked it, but I needed something more budget-friendly. I was a broke ass at the time. He then said, "Well, we can do this one here on the floor for $950. I told him, "To be honest, I only have $400 to spare." He says, "Hold on a minute while I make a call." He then comes out and says, "Okay, we can do $400, just come back in an hour while we prep it." I left, came back, and they even helped me lift it up to my truck. Honestly, the best mattress I've ever owned. I get compliments all the time. Story 15. One of my favorites is that the government was behind #Throwback Thursday in order to get us to digitize and upload pictures that they would not have had access to in order to improve age progression and facial recognition algorithms. Story 16. I believe Miley Cyrus's crazy streak was all a carefully planned marketing scheme to solidify her as an A-list celebrity. I think it was done to make Disney completely cut ties with her and kill the image of Hannah Montana. It worked, too. Hannah Montana was quite possibly Disney's largest TV show ever, but I haven't seen anyone even mention it for over 4 years now. And despite Disney cashing in on old IPs, Aladdin, Kim Possible, Lion King, etc., we have yet to even hear an unsubstantiated rumor regarding Hannah Montana. Story 17. The reason Disney came out with a movie called Frozen was so that when you Googled Disney Frozen, you would get information about the movie and not websites talking about Walt Disney's body being frozen. Story 18. The theory is that cops go on ways and leave random police sightings to cause people to slow down without actually having to stay and check on them. Story 19. The theory is that Apple started the meme about AirPods being expensive as a marketing ploy.